My name is Emily Grace Dawson. I am 14 years old, and I live with my mother and my younger brother in Flagstaff, Arizona. It's just the three of us since my father left us a few years ago. Life here is peaceful, surrounded by pine trees, with that smell of wet earth after rain, and a sky so blue it looks hand-painted. But that day, everything changed. It was a warm spring afternoon, I remember, because I was coming home from school and the sun felt like it wanted to melt my face. I had just gotten home when I started to feel a very strange pain in my chest. At first, I thought it was just anxiety. I get those attacks sometimes, but this time it was different. It was like something was squeezing my heart from the inside. I tried to take a deep breath, but the air just wouldn't come. I remember screaming for my mom, and then nothing. Just darkness. The next thing I saw was a white light. But it wasn't just any light. It was as if everything around me had been absorbed by a soft mist, which wasn't blinding, but also didn't let me see very far. I no longer felt pain or fear, just an absurd peace, the kind that we can't even explain. I was floating. It was like being in a dream, only more real than anything I had ever experienced. Suddenly, I realized I wasn't alone. Ahead of me, someone was approaching. My heart almost jumped out of my chest, but not from fear. It was a deep emotion, as if I were meeting someone I loved very much but hadn't seen in a long time. And then, he smiled. "Hello, my little star," he said. That voice, I hadn't heard it since I was 5, when he passed away from cancer. It was my Grandpa Thomas, my mother's father. I ran to him, or rather, I floated. We hugged as if no time had passed. He still smelled of lavender and wood from his old coat. "You shouldn't be here yet," he whispered, with a tenderness that warmed my soul. "But since you're here, there are things you need to see." That's when I realized it wasn't just a nice dream. I had died. Or almost. But at that moment, for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of death. Being there with my grandfather felt more real than anything in the world. It was as if everything finally made sense. But I still had no idea what he wanted to show me. My grandfather held my hand firmly, as if telling me that no matter what was to come, I would be safe with him. I looked around, and the fog began to dissipate. A bridge appeared in front of us, but it was no ordinary bridge. It shone like liquid gold, vibrating with a living, pulsating light. Each step we took made the bridge emit a soft sound, like notes from a distant harp. Is this heaven?" I asked, still trying to understand what was happening. "It's part of it," my grandfather replied, "or at least part of what you can understand for now." As soon as we crossed the bridge, I was overcome by a wave of emotions. It was as if each step brought to the surface a memory, a forgotten truth, a love that was always there but that I couldn't feel on earth. I started seeing people in the distance, and then I recognized them. My great-grandmother, who I only knew from pictures. My great-uncle, who died in a car accident before I was even born, and even a woman who introduced herself as my mother's sister, a sister she lost as a baby and had never told me about. Everyone welcomed me with loving looks. No one spoke with their mouths, but I heard their words directly in my heart. It was a different kind of communication, as if souls understood each other without needing sound. "You haven't finished your mission down there yet," my great-grandmother said. "But we're all here to remind you of who you are." I didn't know exactly what she meant by that, but something inside me awakened, a certainty that there was a greater purpose, that my life, even though it was only 14 years old, was already part of something much bigger than I could imagine. We walked through a field where the grass seemed to be made of light, and the flowers sang softly. There were trees that seemed to hold memories, and the sky. It was as if it were alive, changing colors according to my feelings. My grandfather took me to a hill. At the top was a kind of portico, like the entrance to an invisible temple. "Are you ready to see more?" he asked. I nodded, even though I wasn't sure. And then he touched my forehead with 2 fingers. I was enveloped by an energy I can't describe. Images flashed before me, faces, cities, events I hadn't seen before. A sense of urgency washed over me. "What is this?" I asked. "Fragments of what's to come," he said. "You'll see more, but you have to trust." And at that moment, even without understanding, I trusted. After that touch on my forehead, everything around me changed again. There was no transition, no warning. It was as if I had been instantly transported to another place, a vast room made of golden light and walls that seemed to go on forever. I felt small there, but at the same time part of something much bigger. The feeling was of being inside the very soul of God. In the center of the room was what appeared to be a table, or perhaps an altar. Above it floated dozens, maybe hundreds, of small books. But they didn't have pages of paper. They were made of pure energy, and each one emitted a different vibration. As I approached, I realized I could hear voices, music, even laughter coming from within them. "What is this?" I asked my grandfather. "These are memories, stories of souls, entire lives told in the form of light. Here, time does not exist. As you know it, past, present, and future, they are all happening now." I felt a deep chill. It wasn't just beautiful. It was sacred. It was as if each of those books told the complete story of a person, with all their pain, choices, joys, and lessons. My grandfather reached for one of the books. When he touched it, it opened, projecting images into the air like a giant hologram. I saw a little girl playing in a backyard, and I saw that same girl grow up, fall in love, suffer a loss, and then die. Then I saw her soul being welcomed by other family members, just as I had been. "That was your great-grandmother in her past life," he explained. "She came back as your sister in this life, and she's there with you, even if you don't know it." My heart almost gave out. I felt a mixture of love, surprise, and an overwhelming desire to run home and hug my sister, even though she was just a sullen 7-year-old. "You chose to meet again in this life," my grandfather said. "You have things to heal." I stood there, staring at that infinite room, trying to understand what it all meant. It was as if the entire universe were an immense book, and each soul a story within it. And yet, everything was connected. "You will take some of these memories with you," my grandfather said. "But not all of them. Just the ones that will guide your path." I turned to him, wondering if it was time to go back. Instead, he looked to a corner of the room where a mirror of sorts had appeared. A mirror made of water, floating in the air. "Now comes the most important part," he said, his tone more serious. "You're going to see what hasn't happened yet." My stomach turned. I felt like I was about to see something that would change everything. Approaching that mirror was like crossing an invisible border. The air grew denser, as if time itself were hesitant to move forward. The water that formed the mirror was not static. It moved in slow spirals, reflecting not just my image, but feelings, intentions, destinies. It was like looking at something that was alive, aware. "What you're about to see now is not an absolute certainty," my grandfather said. "These are possible paths, which gain strength from the choices that humans make. But one of them is becoming increasingly inevitable." I took a deep breath, if I was still breathing there, and looked straight into the mirror. Water, stirred and then cleared. Before me, an image began to form. I saw huge cities, crowds walking in the streets, many of them with flags and posters. I heard cries of revolt, but also of hope. I saw TV screens, social media, everything exploding, with news that seemed to shake the entire world. At the center of it all was a man, a leader. He spoke in a firm, authoritative tone. There was something about his presence that made me uncomfortable. Not fear exactly, but a sense of dissonance, as if his image didn't match the essence behind it. I couldn't see his face clearly. It was as if a fog covered him, preventing me from identifying him. But I knew he was someone important, someone many considered powerful, but who was hiding something terrible. "The world will see him as he really is," my grandfather said. "The truth will come out. It won't be easy. There will be confusion, divisions, but also a great liberation. Many people will see with the eyes of their souls for the first time." I tried to concentrate. I tried to force the mirror to show me more. I saw documents being revealed, secret files, a wealth of information that seemed to have been hidden for decades. And then, multitudes waking up, as if a fog had lifted over humanity. But the revelation also brought chaos. I saw conflict. I saw tears. I saw hopes being shattered. But soon after, I saw hands coming together. I saw a light growing over the earth. "And me?" I asked, swallowing hard. "What do I have to do with this?" My grandfather looked into my eyes with a depth that pierced me to the core. "You have a role, not to change the world with force, but with truth. You will remind people of what they have forgotten. Your story will awaken others. You are a seed." I remained silent. I felt too small for all of that, but at the same time, something inside me was already beginning to accept it. Before I could ask more, the mirror went dark. The images disappeared. My grandfather touched my shoulder. That would be enough for now. And with that, we started walking again. As we walked along a new path of soft light, my grandfather walked silently beside me. I wanted to ask him more about this leader, about the chaos and liberation I had seen, but I felt that it was not yet time. The place we were now entering was unlike anything I had ever experienced, even here, in this world outside the world. It was a kind of garden, but not like the ones on Earth. The flowers seemed to be made of thoughts, and each petal changed color as I approached. The air was filled with soft music, as if 1,000 choirs were singing together, but without opening their mouths. I felt such a strong emotion that my eyes began to water, although I couldn't say why. Was it longing, joy, recognition? "This place is called the Garden of Remembrance," my grandfather said. "Here, you begin to remember who you really are." He led me to a giant tree in the center of the garden. Its branches stretched as far as the eye could see, and on its leaves were symbols, names, moments. When I touched the trunk, a current of energy coursed through my body, and then, as if a door inside me had been opened, I began to remember. I remembered myself, but a me I had never known on Earth. I saw flashes of other lives, of other times. Once I was a boy in a coastal village, another time an old woman who healed with herbs. I saw people who are now part of my life, my mother, my brother, even schoolmates, appearing in different roles throughout these other stories. Sometimes they were my parents, other times my children. It was all connected. I fell to my knees, not understanding how so much truth could fit inside me. I felt my earthly mind trying to resist, but my soul danced with that revelation. "You are so much more than you think you are," my grandfather said, his voice calm. "This life is just a chapter, but each chapter matters." That's when I realized that while I had seen something of the future of humanity, it was only a small part of what was really at stake. The real battle was not against a tyrannical leader, nor against the darkness outside. It was against oblivion, against losing our connection to who we truly are. My grandfather showed me something that left a deep impression on me. He held out his hand, and a veil of smoke appeared before me. Behind him, I saw thousands of people walking in the dark, their eyes closed, but each of them carried a light in their chest. "The world is not lost," he said. "People have just forgotten where their light is. Some will light up because of you." I didn't know how or when, but there, in that moment, I wanted to go back and tell what I saw, go back and turn on the lights. After the Garden of Remembrance, my soul felt expanded. I felt my emotions more deeply, my thoughts clearer, as if every cell in my being vibrated at a new frequency. My grandfather's presence had been a foundation by my side, but now, something about him felt different, as if he were preparing me for something more intimate. "There's someone else waiting for you," he said. His eyes shone with a tenderness that made me swallow hard. "She really wants to see you." Before I could ask who it was, a new path appeared in front of us, made of small, transparent stones that lit up beneath our feet. In the background, an open field covered in lavender and daisies, and in the middle of the field, a woman. From the back, with long white hair, wearing a light blue dress that fluttered in the wind. Even without seeing your face, my heart recognized it. "Grandma?" I whispered, almost voiceless. She turned around, and in that instant, time stopped. It was her. Mine. Grandma Margaret, my mother's mother. I was only 5 when she passed away. I remember her teaching me how to make cookies, her soft laugh, the way she told me stories about angels before bed. But there she was, whole, young and full of light. Her eyes were like suns, and her embrace was the place where all my pain disappeared. "My girl, you've grown so much," she said, her voice shaking with emotion. We cried together, and I didn't want to leave. "I missed you so much," I said, sobbing. "I never really left," she replied. "I was there every night you cried alone. I whispered in your dreams. I held your hand when you didn't know you needed it." I had no words. I just felt. She led me to a small spring in the center of the field. The water was crystal clear and shimmered with colors I couldn't even name. "You have seen truths too big for a child's heart," she said, "but your soul asked to see. Because you have a calling, Emily. You came to Earth at a difficult time, but you are not alone." I was shaking inside. It was all so beautiful, so painfully real. "But why me?" I asked. "Why did I see all that about that leader? About the future?" My grandmother ran her hand over my face. "Because your soul is not 14 years old. It is ancient. You have lived through revolutions. You have calmed hearts in wars. You have healed invisible wounds in many times. And now, without even knowing it, you are doing it again, just with your presence." I remained silent, absorbing every word. "You will come back, my little one," she said, "and you will remember, even if the world below tries to make you forget, these seeds will bloom." And in that instant, something inside me lit up. Not like a light bulb, like a sun. After that reunion with my grandmother, I was at peace. But not a sleeping peace. It was a peace that was awake, alive, purposeful. I felt like I had found the origin of myself, and for the first time I understood what it meant to belong. The feeling was so strong that, for a few moments, I forgot that my body was still lying in a hospital bed in Flagstaff, surrounded by machines, doctors, and worries. My grandfather and grandmother walked with me to a clearing surrounded by towering trees whose leaves sparkled like crystals. In the center, a kind of luminous circle floated in the air. I knew what it was, a passage back. My heart began to sink. "You have to go, Emily," my grandfather said. "It's not your time to stay here yet." I felt a lump in my throat. But what if I forget all of this? What if it feels like it was just a dream? "You won't forget," my grandmother replied, smiling. "Not really. You'll feel the memories inside your chest, in songs, smells, dreams, words that touch you in an inexplicable way." I approached the circle of light. It was beating like a heart. It was getting stronger and stronger. My body seemed to be pulled by it, but something strange happened. The circle began to lose strength. Its light flickered, wavered. My grandparents exchanged glances, not of panic, but of surprise. My grandfather stepped forward and looked toward something I couldn't see. "She can't come back yet," said an unfamiliar voice, deep and soft, coming from everywhere at once. I felt a chill. It was as if the sky itself was holding me there for a little longer. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice shaking. "There is one more thing that needs to be shown to you," my grandfather said, now serious. "Something that will help you trust what you have seen and will prepare you for the challenges that lie ahead." I was confused. I thought it was all over. That was the farewell. But deep down, a part of me was relieved, because I wasn't ready. Not yet. "So, what else do I have to see?" I asked. My grandmother held my hands and looked at me with the sweetest eyes in the universe. "You have to see what happens when the truth touches the world, when lies lose their hold. It's not enough to know what's coming. You have to feel it." It was then that the field around us disappeared. We were transported back, as if, in the blink of an eye, to another place. A sort of temple suspended over what appeared to be planet Earth. Below us, cities, oceans, forests, and deserts stretched out like a living map. And there, in the center of the temple, awaited me. A vision that would change everything. The temple loomed above the planet like an island of light. Everything around it was made of moving energy, translucent pillars, vaults that seemed to contain entire constellations, and a floor that pulsed beneath my feet as if it breathed with me. I held my grandmother's hand as my grandfather walked ahead, toward a central point where a large sphere hovered. It seemed to contain the Earth itself in miniature, slowly rotating, surrounded by a silvery mist. "You are about to witness something that has not yet happened in your world," he said solemnly, "but has already begun to form on the spiritual plane." The sphere glowed brighter. Then the mist surrounding it began to part, revealing vivid scenes within. I saw a huge international conference. Men and women in formal attire, flags of many countries, journalists. Everything seemed very serious, very controlled, until a shockwave ran through the room. It was almost as if a secret had exploded in the air, invisible but impossible to ignore. I saw wide eyes. I saw reporters running. Cameras focusing on a single man in the center, a leader. A face that still eluded me, shrouded in a dark mist, almost like a spiritual barrier. But it wasn't the face that caught my attention. It was what happened next. As if something beyond the physical had been ripped from him, the truth was exposed, not just documents or evidence, but a dense energy that had been disguised for decades, as if everyone, for a moment, saw with the eyes of the soul. I saw people around me react as if they were waking up from a trance. Some were crying, others screamed, but most remained silent, as if the truth was too great to be said in words. "He cheated millions," my grandfather said, "but the time has come." A chill ran down my spine. I wanted to know who he was, his name, his country, his motive. But all that information was veiled, shielded, as if I was only supposed to see the essentials, not the details. You don't need to know who it is now, my grandmother explained, seeing my uneasiness. What matters is that it will happen, and when it does, you will remember seeing it. You will know that it is real, and that everything you have experienced here was not your imagination. The sphere then moved away, slowly rising until it disappeared into the roof of the temple. And there, facing the immensity of the earth below us, my grandfather looked at me firmly. The world is going to go through a great purification, Emily. The masks will fall, and many souls, even the most dormant ones, will awaken. You will be one of those who will help others deal with this. I could only shake my head, trying to absorb it. You will tell your story, and it will be a mirror for those who are afraid to remember their own light. There I knew. My mission would begin when I returned, and there was no longer any doubt that I would return. After the vision in the temple, my soul seemed to have changed shape. I was no longer just Emily, the girl from Flagstaff who liked to draw in notebooks and listen to music in her room. I was part of something so much bigger, so ancient, and yet so personal. It was as if the entire universe had whispered in my ear, "You are needed." My grandparents led me back down a path of golden light, but now I felt the weight of parting. The same field where I had met my grandmother appeared before us again. The flowers danced in the wind, as if they knew this was a solemn moment. "This is where we part, for now," my grandfather said, with a smile that hid the sadness. "But it's not the end. It never is." I couldn't hold back the tears. "I don't want to leave." My grandmother hugged me tightly, as if she wanted to keep my entire body in her heart. "We will be with you, in every moment. When you laugh for no reason, when you feel someone watching you in the silence, when you hear your name whispered in the wind, we will be." Her words passed through me like living poetry. I didn't want to forget. I couldn't. "What if I get lost?" "Down there?" I asked. "What if it all feels too heavy?" My grandfather held my face in his hands and looked deep into my eyes. "You will not be lost. You have been remembered. That will never be erased." He then took something out of his pocket, a small blue stone that pulsed with a soft light. He placed it in my hand. "You won't physically carry this, but you will feel it. Whenever you touch truth, love, your essence, it will be as if this stone is with you." I closed my eyes, pressing that light against my chest. "How will I know when to tell what I experienced?" "You will feel it," my grandmother replied. "It will be like a fire inside you. You will not be able to contain it. And when you tell it, other flames will be lit." The circle of light reappeared on the field, vibrating with intense energy. It was time. My grandparents gave me one last hug. I wanted to stay longer. I wanted to go back to the tree of remembrance, dive into the fountain with my grandmother, walk among the stars with my grandfather. But the call was there. Strong. Irresistible. "See you soon, my little star," my grandfather whispered. "See you later, my little girl of light," my grandmother said, her voice breaking. I stepped into the circle. Everything around me began to spin, as if I were being sucked into a whirlpool of love, of time, of truth. I felt my body being pulled back, but lightly, as if a part of me remained there, rooted in eternity. At the last second, before everything went black, I heard a phrase coming from all sides at the same time. "She will remember." And then everything went dark. When my eyes opened, the first thing I noticed was the strong smell of alcohol and hospital products, white lights, the distant sound of machines, and my mother's face, red from crying. She was holding my hand tightly, as if she was afraid of losing me again. My brother was there too, his eyes wide and wet, trying to look brave. "Emily, my God, you're back," she murmured, caressing my face. I tried to smile, but my mouth was dry, and my body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. But inside, I was light as a feather floating among the stars. A deep calm enveloped me, a certainty that, no matter what happened from now on, I was not alone. The doctors said I had suffered a sudden cardiac arrest caused by a congenital defect they had never detected before. My vital signs had been gone for nearly 4 minutes. They still couldn't explain how I had come back without any after effects. But I knew I had been somewhere else, somewhere more real than this world. In the days that followed, I tried to tell my mother what I had seen. She listened attentively, but there was doubt in her eyes. How could she blame anyone? It is hard to believe when the invisible touches the visible so strongly. At school, everything seemed the same. But I wasn't the same anymore. People talked about ordinary things, and I smiled, pretending to be normal. But inside, I carried a sacred secret. Sometimes I close my eyes and go back to that golden bridge. I hear my grandmother's laughter in the lavender field. I feel the touch of the blue stone on my chest, even though it's not there. And there are nights when I wake up crying, after dreaming of the temple above the earth, and the exact moment when the world discovered what was to come. The sigh image of the leader still escapes me. His face is obscured by spiritual fog. But the feeling I carry is unshakable. The truth will emerge, and when that happens, I will know. Not just because I saw it, but because I will feel the same vibrations that ran through that mirror of jellyfish. I don't know how I'm going to tell this to the world. Maybe through a video, maybe by writing, maybe just by looking into the eyes of the right people and letting my presence remind them of something they've forgotten. I am 14 years old. I still like to draw, stay in my room with music in the background, and a notebook on my lap. But now I see lights around people. I feel the sadness they hide. And sometimes I hear soft voices when I'm about to give up. I still don't know when everything I saw will happen. But I wait. I wait with faith. Because I know that moment will come. And when it does, the world will never be the same again. But until then, I will continue, with gratitude, and with the most beautiful certainty that anyone can carry. Love never dies, and we are never alone. Dies, and we are never alone.